Namaskara.
Sorry, I think last a couple of weeks we could not meet, particularly mainly due to my, my falling a little bit sick. So sorry about that. And I hope I'm sure. I hope. I'm very very sure. As the as the as the pandita as well as the person who's giving the talk answers, you would be waiting to continue where you left. So I don't think the viewers will have any gap in the session. Um, uh, I don't know what you're trying to say, but I think as a part of continuity, um, I think you need to. It would be helpful if you are able to explore deeper into this shastra and all the stuff because um, among various philosophers I've read, more than anybody, Madhvacharya tremendously focuses on Shabda. If the way I understand, right or wrong, I don't know. You have to tell me. The way I understand is that it's very hard to really understand the end state, the moksha state, dissolution state, what happens there, etc., by using mere logic, because we are going to use the instruments of epistemology of a limited existence as a human form. Even though human form is supposedly more advanced than any other form, even as a human form, it is limited in the ability to use the instruments given to the body. The instruments themselves are limited, and we use much, much less, actually speaking. Therefore, using these instruments, that is mind, senses, intellect, logic, and whatnot, we are bringing to come to a definitive conclusion. We can come to a lot of conclusions, but it cannot be definitive. Therefore, we have to rely upon Shastra. It seems to be, in my view, the thread of argument everywhere. In many texts of whatever he has written and argued, I find this pops up. That's probably one of the reasons why, among all Ramanuja, Shankara, or anybody else, later day philosophers who try to add, modify, etc., he's the only one who quotes from so many books, so many. I have not seen anybody do even one third of what he has done. Um, I understand. I agree to some extent because even science tells us the the human brain's power is so huge. Nobody uses even 1% of what is the power of human brain is what at least the present current conclusion of science. And we know very well, leave alone the brain, we know very well we don't hear properly, we don't listen to others. Many times, um, um, like they say, no, we hear to respond rather than listen to understand is the statement, which shows the limitations of how we use our hearing faculty. Likewise, what is in front of us we don't see. That's very now we are mentally preoccupied. We don't even see what is in front of us. Likewise, we can see for everything. Therefore, it is totally understood that A, all the faculties given are faculties of sensing, judging, discriminating, deciding, all these faculties given to human body per se are, by themselves are limited in ability and we use much less. Therefore, how can we trust a conclusion which we come only based on this faculty is a powerful argument. See, many times I feel, um, in jurisprudence, there is a concept called reasonable doubt. If you establish in a court of law a reasonable doubt, an accused can get free or get be punished, even though he is not really committed the crime. Mostly they use it for reasonable doubt, used for letting an accused free, even though there are circumstantial evidence which shows he or she has committed a crime. I believe that reasonable doubt seems to be the strategy of Madhvacharya in everywhere. Whenever, particularly when there's a conflict between Advaita and Dvaita, he tries to say, oh, see this, see this, see this. Therefore, these things create, using Shastra, these things create reasonable doubt on the contention. Therefore, that need not be the only condition. Therefore, my question to you is that over relying on text, does it not lead to an opportunity of accusation is the wrong word, but still I use it because it comes to mind. Accusing Madhvacharya for using reasonable doubt as a means of establishing his philosophy is something which I would like you to explore, and more so because texts are so unreliable. I mean, I'm not saying it. In Mahabharata, Madhvacharya himself says, he himself says that I read everywhere, I went around and looked at so many manuscripts of various versions of Mahabharata, lot of edition, limitations, modifications of insertions have taken place. They are totally unreliable. Having said that, how can you then go on and say, therefore, I am telling you what Mahabharata is, you trust me than anybody else? That seems to be the starting point of Mahabharata Nirnaya. Also, if you can, I don't know what you're planning, but if you can address these issues, because as you go deeper and deeper, you're going to really quote only text as evidence for his proof of his philosophy. So this is my preamble questions or questionnaire or whatever you say, which would be wonderful if you can address this. Thank you.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Narasimho Akhilajnana Madadvanta Divagraha Jayatyamita Sajnana Subhashakti Payoridihi Abhravam Bhangarahitam Ajadam Vimalam Sada Ananda Theertha Madulam Bhaje Tapatrayapaham Apadamaudi Paryantam Gurunam Akritim Smaret Tena Vignaha Pranashyanti Siddhyanti Manorathaha. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So I had planned actually to continue about how Acharya defines Shastra and coming from an epistemological angle, because eventually it will lead to how Madhva looks at texts versus how a non-Madhva looks at text, and that distinction needs to be justified, and that's why I thought let's establish epistemologically and then we can go there. For example, this an Advaitin, right, or most people, they will quote anything that ends with the word Upanishad. They will think that it is Apaurishaya and therefore it is like a infallible pramana kind of thing. But that's not true here. Acharya doesn't say that. In fact, we'll come to that thing. In fact, Raghavendra Swami, he says that there are 30 Upanishads, and we will come to that discussion sooner. The other point is that, so I thought that's what we will go about doing this. So how do, for example, in today's world, you have Ashtavakra Gita and all these things which are popularized by, Art of Living or some of these other, neo-Advaitic centers. But or they talk about yoga, but primarily they are also trying to some sort of merge yoga and a dualistic doctrine like yoga with Advaita. And so we will talk. But for us, Ashtavakra Gita is not a pramana because it was never told by Ashtavakra or something like that. So we will come, and how do we decide that? That is what I thought we will talk about, and based on what Acharya has said. Because so see, I mean, look at it, right? You will bring one plethora of pramana saying that these are all there, these are all valid, and we will say that is not a pramana. So we need to know it. We need to know why it is not random. We need to know why, which is random rather. Okay, and so that comparison would have been helpful, is what I thought. But we will address your questions before I try to get into that one. So Acharya, does he use reasonable doubt is an important question, to basically say that no, this is also a possible state kind of thing. That's what reasonable doubt does, right? A reasonable doubt is to basically say, look, that person couldn't have committed crime, though there are circumstantial evidence over there in that direction. He may not have. I mean, the opposite is argued upon. Therefore, it is inconclusive. A reasonable doubt is essentially makes matters inconclusive. But Acharya doesn't say that anywhere. He is not at all inconclusive. He is quite conclusive on the other hand. So that's he basically says that if, for example, let's take, there are two Shrutis that need to be reconciled. He will give a method by which both are reconciled, and in support of that, he will give another text which makes this thing clear. In fact, if you read Sumadhvijaya, that is the instructions that was given to him. Right? In Shruti Smriti, Kave Yojaya, basically O dear one, O knowledgeable one, that's what Narayana Rishi tells Madhvacharya. Narayana Rishi is different from Lord Narayana. I mean, at least role-wise, they are essentially same, but this Narayana Rishi is the son of Dharma, Narayana kind of thing. Okay, yeah. So that Narayana tells Madhvacharya, look, you should try to harmonize all Shruti, Smritis. You should write your commentaries using Shruti and Smriti. So that's why, unlike other commentators, Acharya's own commentary is very, very few. I mean, it's there are very few words over there, and if at all he does that, he will give one quote to justify why he wrote it like that. So that is very typical of Acharya, and therefore he is not using reasonable doubt as a means to reconcile. He is using proper methods of what do you call interpretation. He defines the rules, and those rules are generally, you will, when he tells them, you will find it logical. For example, he says that, look, there is one text which is which somehow, let's say, on the face of it, it supports Jiva and Brahma Aikya. And then there is another text where the same thing is rejected. Now, will you say this one overrides this or this one overrides this? So Acharya says, look, any text, he uses many reasons, but one of the reasons, right, which he gives in Gita Bhashya, for example, is that any text where a conclusion is reached after analysis is more powerful than any text which just makes a statement. So this second one, wherein, for example, in Mahabharata itself, right, Yudhishthira and Bhishma have a discussion. Okay, Magnasya pare ajnane dukkadaram kimu dukkadaram bhavet. That is the statement in Mahabharata. So basically, Yudhishthira misunderstands one Bhishma statement, and he says that, he raises this objection, saying that if the Jiva were to become same as Brahman without having any knowledge of its own individuality, can there be anything more sad than that, miserable than that? There is nothing more miserable than that. So he says that statement. So in retort, Bhishma says, look, that is not what I told. I have never said that, Jiva will become Brahman or is Brahman or anything like that. And he goes on to explain how the Jiva has Sukshmendriyas in Moksha and all that and so forth. The point is that there is a vichara that is happening over here. There is an analysis that has happened over here. So Acharya says this portion is therefore stronger in driving its conclusion rather than just any other statement which says, look, both are same. So this is an what do you call it, an element of logic that he has used to say why one text is stronger in its conclusion, while the other text needs to be, altered a little bit, or, not the text itself, the interpretation needs to be altered a little bit to get at a reconciliation, at an interpretation that is harmonious to both. This is not a reasonable doubt. This is basically saying that, one is conclusive, other one needs, the interpretation needs little change. So this, you will find this kind of rules that he gives almost in all, throughout his work. So that's why he used to be called Anumana Theertha, right? Because he is so much of logic he will give, right? For example, take the thing of Shaiva Purana versus Vaishnava Purana. Why should you hold Vaishnava Purana to be sattvic or, to be truthful as compared to the Shaiva Purana? That is a text, that is we will come to that thing. Why not the other way around? So he will give a host of reasons in Mahabharata Tattva Vaada itself. He basically says, for example, simplest thing, right? Vaishnava Purana is in line with the Veda. Shaiva Purana is not in line with the Veda. Wherever, Vishnu Sarvottamatva is compromised. So that portions we will treat it differently. So Acharya is not using reasonable doubt anywhere at all. He gives logic as to why you should give one text over the other text interpretation. He doesn't ditch any text, okay, but he will ditch some other text also, and which one he is open to ditching or ignoring, and which one he is open to reinterpreting is again a matter of Shastra, what we are going to see now. The other part about Mahabharata Tatpara Nirnaya, right? I think, that is the first question that everybody will get. Deshe, Deshe, I have seen this thing, I know I have collected. Kotyam Shopina Vidyate, Kvachit Granthan Prakshipati, Prakshipanti, Kvachit Antaritan api. He says all these things, how text has been modified. He's talking primarily about the Mahabharata text over there, but I mean, that applies also to the Puranas and Pancharatras. And eventually he says that, Kotyam Shopina Vidyate, whatever is there, not even the original part is this thing. Now, look, he could have given us, this is what I have collected. Now you go to find out the, what the true meaning is. He knows that we are not capable of that. So that's why he has given a digest. He says that this nirnaya or whatever it is the way you can reconcile this thing. And there, yes, if you believe in me, take it. Otherwise, you will also ignore. What is the big deal? I mean, he is not. He doesn't want to impose himself on anybody for that matter. But he says, look, there is nothing more beneficial to you than my words. If you accept it, if you believe it, well and good for you. Otherwise, do whatever you wish. Krishna says the same thing, by the way. Right? So all these great people, they behave alike. I mean, they will just say, they will tell you, look, whatever I am telling you is the truth. If you trust it, well and good. If you don't trust it, up to you. So that is their stance. And I would, therefore, what if you want to look at Mahabharata Tattva Nirnaya as, I would look more of it as a Prameya Grantha rather than, somebody who is trying to establish the real version of Mahabharata itself. And of course, Acharya says this thing in many other places also, right? And he gives quotes in many places. In fact, in Mahabharata Tattva Nirnaya itself, he gives many quotes. Okay, those are not distinguishable for us. He quotes from Mahabharata itself. He quotes something from Bhagavata. He quotes many from Harivamsha, especially Bhavishyat Parva. So he gives lots of quotes over there. Yeah. You are on mute, I think.
Oh, okay, I was just put on mute because there's some fan here. Are you able to hear the buzzing sound or no?
No.
No, okay, good. So,
yeah, right. When I'm speaking, I can't hear anything else.
Okay. Yeah. So there are a couple of points I want to mention here. See, where it becomes a little dicey in Madhvacharyya's arguments is here, like you rightly said, right, Robson? It's a wrong example, so I don't want to say it. It will be disrespectful. I don't want to say it, but let me use my words very carefully. Once he has declared that, and they say, and all the stuff which you mentioned, right, is discredited almost the prevailing versions of Mahabharata, essentially Mahabharata, and he can extrapolate to other texts also. Having established that, if he puts forth an argument later and starts quoting texts, then his own condemnation of text is valid for the references he's giving. That is where I find it is kind of a sleight of hand kind of a trick he's doing.
No, see, okay. He's not discrediting the complete version of Mahabharata as is. Okay?
No, I agree. But so the integrity is questioned.
Yeah, it is like, your deconstruction that people talk about, right? I mean, it is there very much in philosophy in the last century or so, right? You have, I forgot his name, Derrida, I think. He has put this deconstruction kind of thing. You can look at Acharya's this thing in similar manner. It is just that, he has his principles by which he is able to basically tie down the authentic parts and then give you the version over there. The questions of, the question of which version to take, eventually, it is not a statistical exercise the way it is done by, for example, Boria or anything like that. If you look at it from your own, if you try to understand that thing, eventually it has to be a blessing from God as this is the version, true version. It is inescapable, and everybody comes to that. Okay, even Shankaracharya, that's why he takes recourse to sampradaya with. He will say that. Why is he saying that? Because he wants to eventually say that, look, beyond this, I don't have any other argument. So, but here in Acharya's case also, there are many versions, instances where he proves that the version that he is giving is the right one. For example, in Sumadhvijaya, I'm not sure if you are aware of this incident or not. There is a question on the authenticity of, they are all trying to figure out which version of Bhagavata, fifth skandha, is the right one. So they are all trying to compare different versions, his students, and so Acharya is just a fresh sannyasi. So maybe he's like 10, 12 years old or something like that. Just imagine one boy whose mustache is not even coming over there. He tells this is the correct version. He has just come there. He has had no exposure to this problem in the first hand, and he tells this is the right version. So they thought, I mean, obviously anybody will first think that it is a random claim, and they ask him to justify it. Thankfully, because he's a sannyasi or whatever it is, they give him the opportunity to justify. So they will tell, okay, tell me the full version there. So he reads out without looking at the manuscript. He reads the entire fifth skandha thing, and he says that is the version that has come truly from Vedavyasa. So all other versions, he has not seen them. He knows which is the right version, and then he tells that thing out. And look at his time period, right? If you look at his time period, people were indeed worried about this particular problem of textual corruption. Okay, it is there in even I forgot the Vedanta Deshika's work also. Okay, he has written a work called Satcharitra Raksha, wherein he tries to, one of the things that he tries to do is justify the application of Urdhva Pundra rather than Tripundra. So when he is justifying that, he refers to many quotes which are, and then he says that look, these quotes are not available now, but our paramparas had taken them, and he is basically referring to Yamuna Acharya or people before that, and therefore, and even text of Malik Mahopanishad and all those things, and therefore he says that this is a valid and acceptable practice. So the problem of some text that the previous guy, the previous person in the clan or in the parampara has quoted but not available now, was rampant over at that time. And it's not just him. There is another Bengal king. I mean, he's more. I forgot his name. He has written this work called Dana Sagara. He also refers to many cases where Puranas have been corrupted and things like that. And then he says that, but I will give you the right version, kind of thing, right? And he will try to tell you the portions where it is there. Now, so Acharya lived in that era where textual corruption was a big issue, and people worried about that, and they researched about that. So in posterity, what you have to assume is that when they presented something, and when they presented to a larger public, and if it was accepted, it means that they physically showed some proof of that at that time, which may not be available to us now. This is reasonable doubt. Right? I mean, so that is why that's why personally, what, I used to be very intrigued by the fact that many of his texts are not available now, and the kind of reasoning that people gave. But once I look at the pattern is very clear that it's not just one or two of these people that have come there. Even outside of Madhya Sampradaya, there is a question about textual corruption. In fact, Vedanta Deshika's Shatadushani, right? He quotes one work which is actually Vigneshwara's Veeramitrodaya, I think. Okay, I am not too sure which one it is. It is a commentary on Yajnavalkya Smriti. He says that this guy quotes, he attributes texts to Vyasa which are not found. So that is the kind of era that they have lived in. So I
agree with you in this, because historians have also said that in the Gupta period, a lot of things were rewritten. That is one thing that historians claim. Though we don't want to trust these modern historians too much, but still they make the point. I'm sorry.
The question for everybody, right? Whether it is historian or a traditionalist or my neighbor or anybody else, the question is same. Kena pramanena gnayate. How do you know?
Yeah, correct.
And Acharya, that's what we will come to in this thing, right? Yes. I mean, that's what we will come to.
Last point I make, and I'll stop interrupting you. That is, another thing is also that that was the period when the Mughal invasion has started, right? Around the 200, 300 years. And therefore, we know that plenty of destruction took place. Libraries, temples were destroyed, libraries were burned, people tried to protect things and things like that. Of course, it was particularly in Madhvacharya's period, we do hear reference of he's kind of crossing the path of Mughal invaders, etc. We hear that. Therefore, it is understandable that a period of 300, 400 years where whole nation was under turmoil because of invasion. Just after the Guptas, trying to glorify whatever they want to glorify, therefore we do historically, non-historically, the scholars wise, we understand this. That is why two questions arise. One is why trust him more than anybody else is one question, and second thing is we don't want to go by what Sumanta Vijaya or any of those hagiographics say. They will glorify that's the recent converts. Therefore, they will glorify to justify their conversion. They will justify. I do not want to give any value to Sumanta Vijaya, just as I don't give any value to Shankara Vijaya either.
There's a difference, though. Why I trust.
I agree with you. There's a difference.
1 minute. See, the thing is that we should inspect our own values on which text I accept or which text I don't accept, kind of thing, right? And then come to this conclusion whether it is reliable or not reliable. For example, is my rule that if a text is hagiological, I will not believe it. That will be very illogical, right? I mean, it could be, for example, there is autobiography of Gandhi also is there, and My Experiments with Truth, right? He has written that. There is one, there are many biographies that are out there which we tend to accept. So it's not that our problem is with hagiography or biographies themselves. Then the question is, okay, will you believe any hagiography that raises anybody to a superhuman kind of thing, which which basically does not put any flaw in their hero or their main protagonist? There also that is also not a valid this one, because Bhagavata is also talking the same thing about Krishna or other avatars of Vishnu. They are also, it is it is also a biography only, and they are also eulogizing him. They are also saying that there is no flaw in that. So the question is, what we should, the way our own rule of ditching or accepting a hagiography should be, it is not based on the contents. It is based on whether how reliable it is. So my point, I mean, your question, your point, right? They are recent converts. Therefore, their their versions is questionable. Is a reasonable point to make. But in contrast to that, he gives many reasons as to why he's believable. He's trustworthy. He, for example, says that, look, I have not put anything in this book that is not corroborated by 10 other people. Okay, and even if there is a slightest change in this thing, I have not included that in this book. And then he says that anything that is Deva Rahasya or whatever it is, I have not included. So he is trying to give us a version that is very small, constricted, publicly verifiable version. So what he is trying to say is that, look, you may doubt me, but this method of trying to make a biography is unquestionable. And more importantly, he did not write this biography 100 years, or this biography did not come 100 years after Acharya.
Yes.
It's a very important point, which is he is almost like a junior. He lived in the same time as Acharya. Yes. Therefore, he had access to those people who were then around, and who kind of knew Acharya's life, and that is why he is able to give you a version. That's why even if you don't trust Shankara Vijaya because of their the distance with the actual events, Vijaya is reliable because they don't have that distance. And because of his method, which says that, look, I have this thing. What you may ignore is, for example, there he refers to how events in the moksha happen and all those things, right? Which he defines through Sesha telling other people. While we, as followers, believe that, it has references in Chandogya Upanishad and other things like that, or Subala Upanishad, it is, as an outsider, you may want to say, okay, that is at least left to imagination only, right? So what I'm trying to say is that Sumant Vijaya is, I mean, unless one takes a position like, look, I will not believe in any biography, it has all the characteristics of a believable, trustworthy biography. So therefore, though now when you go into the contents, yes, the hero is told in very high terms. No, at every point, I mean, there also you'll get to the question: is it because of my bias that I am rejecting that possibility, or is it because that truly, the hero was like that we have to accept it like that? this is again, the personal Swarupa thing comes over there. Not Swarupa, it has many other things, many other factors as to, what you're trained on and things like that. So similar eulogization, similar so-called exaggerations are there for Krishna also. So how can you reject one and not accept one and reject the other one? I mean, so this is a bigger argument. I think, there is eventually it is like every other judgment, it is subjective. The person, whoever looks at both these arguments, they need to say, okay, I accept this, and to be consistent, I will accept that both these biographies are true. And if any other biography, let's say people have told that, there is another biography of Madhvacharya that was published in 2000. Not 2000, in the late 1900s or so. And that was apparently written by Satyatirtha, who is again disciple of Madhvacharya. Nobody believes that one much, actually. They don't give much credence to it, only one particular, and they think that it has a political connotation. That is why they don't trust that particular version over there. Now, so people have been, cautious in accepting text and not accepting text all through our history, right? And only we tend to think, at least, I mean, in the last 2-3 centuries, when the British and the Mughal invasions have become very troublesome for us, when there was no political this thing, we have had these questions. Otherwise, the basic institution of text, textual analysis, reconciliation, I think has been pretty strong, going strong with us for quite some time. With that, let me get to the point.
Please, go ahead.
You are able to, okay, I need to share my screen.
Yes.
1 minute. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So let's continue with this one. So we basically said is Apaurishaya. How is Apaurishaya known? So we basically say it is there are multiple independent sources of unauthoredness, and that is the reason why Veda is Apaurishaya. And we also talked about how Prasiddhi is the only proof that is possible, because except for self-authored statements, right? Prasiddhi is the only proof of authoredness. So the same Prasiddhi is telling you that in case of Veda, it is not authored. Therefore, you need to hold that Veda is Apaurishaya. We talked about, the bigger question, which is that how do you, why do we do all this circus? We should just say Veda is also authored. We may not know the author simply because it is a statement. If it is a sentence, it has an author. This is an, this link between sentenceness or textness and authoredness is what we have seen everywhere. Therefore, Veda is no exception to that. Therefore, all these other arguments that we are trying to give here is Prasiddhi or whatever it is a fake thing, right? So at that time, we say that no, how do you look at exceptions in inductive reasoning, right? So how do you know every sentence that is there has an author or a composer? It is only by looking at sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, and so on and so forth. You generalize that thing, and then you say that all texts have authors. Now, how do you know? How do you detect an exception is what we looked at. And then we look at that exception. In case of sentenceness and authoredness, the exceptions cannot be based on the title of the work or whether the author's name is printed or not. I'm not sure if this particular argument is understood or not. So let me explain that a little bit.
Yes.
So see here, right? Anybody says, okay, look, all sentences have authors. So in Tattvavaada, and I think in general logic, it makes sense that when you say X implies Y, right? What is the proof for X implies Y? How do you know? How do you come to this particular premise that X implies Y? So can you take a guess, sir?
How do you
know that X implies Y? So in this case, the question is sentenceness implies authoredness. How do you know this?
Are you talking about cause and effect relationship or?
No, it is not. It could be implication also, right?
Okay.
It's not causal. It is.
If it is
also, how do you know there is correlation?
Okay. So if it is not cause and effect, but just merely at correlation level, then what we have to see is there has to be an associated behavior between the two parameters. That is, whenever the influencing parameter changes its behavior, the outcome parameter should also reasonably similarly show variations.
Perfect. So, but how do you generalize here is the question. You may have seen it in one instance, you may see it in 2 instances or 20 instances. How do you generalize this? Look at the other examples that I have given here, right? For example, all numbers divided by themselves result in 1. You may have tried this thing on 1 or 2 numbers, or maximum it's 20 numbers. How do you generalize this is the question. So I will the technical answer for that is bhuyo bhuyo darshana. Okay, you always see X and Y together, or whatever you are saying, right? I change X, I see a change in Y. I change X in a different direction, the Y also changes in the different direction. Okay, Y also changes its direction. Based on this, I say that X and Y are relatable, or wherever X is, where X implies Y. So this is how we do it. Bhuyo bhuyo darshana. I see it in multiple cases, multiple enough to say that okay, now there exists unquestionable relation between them, and that is how we decide on what we call as vyapti here. So in this case, the most of the people, they say, I have seen sentence 1, I have seen sentence 2, I have seen many other things. They all have authors. Therefore, all sentences have authors. This is the main objection. Because of this objection, people will say Veda is not Apaurusheya, because Veda is also made of sentences.
Yes.
Right. So to that, what Acharya basically says in other places, you decide Vyapti not just by positive stuff, where X is there, Y is also there, not just by that. You search for cases where X is not there, but Y is, X is there, but Y is not there. Okay. So X implies Y. If you have to make that connection, that correlation, you need to have not only positive cases where you see both X and Y together, you also need to search for cases where X is there but Y is not there, where the claimed reason is there, but the conclusion is not there. Okay, you should search for them, say that it is not there, and therefore wherever X is there, Y is there. So wherever, for example, smoke is there, fire is there. I have searched it I have looked for that in kitchen, in another kitchen, in some other place. I see that wherever smoke is there, fire is there. I search for places where this particular thing is violated, vyabhichara, right? Wherever this particular rule, wherever smoke implies fire is there, I search for cases where it is violated. I find that it is not violated anywhere. Therefore, I say, okay, smoke implies fire. Now look at the reverse. Does fire imply smoke? I search for, I look at my kitchen, some other kitchen, some other place. I find that fire is always, it has smoke over there. But then I look at cases where, the thing is, like an iron rod or something like that, which does not have any moisture there. So there I can see that fire is there, but smoke is not there. So wherever fire is there, smoke is there, fire does not imply smoke in every other case, because I have searched for a case where that particular rule gets violated. So there are 2 steps before we say X implies Y. You search for all the positive cases, there should be enough pattern over there. Okay. So that is one more thing. It is like your data sciences thing, right? You need at least 3 points to establish a pattern. We say that it needs to be many more than that, and only that can establish a pattern over there, right? And that pattern needs to be established, number 1, and you should also search for cases where that pattern is not there, come to a conclusion that there is no such instance, and only then conclusion that X implies Y. With that, now how do you search for cases where there is a sentence but not an author?
Yes.
How do you search for that? How do you identify that? Identify those cases. Is it because it's not like so somebody can say, look, if there is any such text which are made of sentences but it doesn't have author, it will have the title page will not have an author. But that is not a valid condition. You can have even author text which does not name the author. So therefore, that is not a valid condition. Some people may say, no, okay, if there is one sentence, if there are sentences, and it refers to place A, place B, place C, then it has an author. That is also not true. For example, Phantom and all this Batman and all these stories are there. They don't have references to real places. Somebody may say, okay, take the other way around, right? If there is an author, basically, they may think that, there is some references to known places only, so unknown places. So that's when, these examples of Phantom or all these things came. So whatever means by which you do not have a valid means to say that there is a, this is how I would have identified an exception and I didn't find that exception. Therefore, there is no exception. To say that, what is the condition by which you will start searching for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that condition, eventually, when you rule out all the plausible conditions, only one condition comes. It should have that kind of prasiddhi.
Correct.
And therefore, this inductive reasoning itself, right? The exception to that generic, before you generalize that, the only plausible condition by which you can detect vyabhichara there, you can detect a violation of this rule is through prasiddhi. And that prasiddhi is there for Veda.
Correct.
Therefore, Veda is an exception to this particular rule.
Correct.
Therefore, all those pramanas get this thing. So anyway, we looked at this one last time also. We looked at this slide to figure out why Paurusheya Vakya is not useful for understanding dharma adharma. Again, this is also not based on reasonable doubt or anything like that. It is not. We do accept that our own indriyas have limitations, right? I gave the example earlier of eyes not being able to detect rasa, for example, right? So when you know that each of these indriyas are themselves very, they have their limitations. You cannot claim that all of them put together will cover everything out there. We have seen that kind of things earlier. Therefore, you need to accept that there could be something beyond the indriya stuff also. And we looked at all of these things earlier. And when can those things which are beyond the reach of indriya, okay, it is again, what I'm trying to do is, it is not based on reasonable doubt. It is based on elimination or whatever you can call that, which is pure logic. You say that a Paurusheya Grantha cannot accept that. Apaurusheya Grantha, if you accept, there is nothing. You don't need any amount of imagination. In case of Paurusheya Vakya, you are assuming that the author is omniscient. The author does not want to deceive. The author is actually authored it. That person is not an omniscient. That person does not want to deceive, and that person has actually written it. All these things you need to assume. In case of Apaurusheya, you don't need to assume anything. Why? Because Veda kartu aprasiddhehe. Aprasiddhehe here means apramitatvat. Apramitatvat means it is not given by any pramana. It is just like, your pot is there, but pot has certain pramanas. None of the pramanas are telling you that there is a pot here right between, me and this laptop, right? So therefore, I will say there is ghata abhava, pot abhava is there. There is no pot here. So it is not kalpana there. Correct? So therefore, by similar means, there is no pramana tells you that there is an author for the Veda. Therefore, it is akartrukatvam siddhameva. It is established by that means only. Correct. Now they say no, laukika vakyavat sakartrukatvam. He says, but no, like any other vakya that is there, you have, even if you do not know the author, you have to say it is authored. Okay? He says, no, there is an exception condition for that. Laukika Vakya, we come to this conclusion. Any Vakya, it is authored. We come to that conclusion because it is not known to be unauthored. Okay? And then he says, this is very important. Let's say somebody has tried to, somebody comes and claims that, look, I have seen this thing, right? I heard this sentence and therefore it is another Veda. He says, no, any anonymous author cannot claim, or even a known author cannot claim that whatever they have seen or felt is same as Veda. Why? Because parampara bhavat. This is the most important thing out there. Correct. So this parampara is what we had seen in the next text here, next slide there, right? And then we said as to why this particular condition is what happens in case of people like Vasishtha, Vishwamitra, who are Swayam Pratibhata Veda, for whom the Veda was revealed. At that time also, right, there is a parampara. That's what this Acharya's line says that. So when Vishwamitra saw the Gayatri mantra, there is a parampara which of similar nature. Just that Vishwamitra did not know that. That's what we saw in the slides earlier. And we said that, there are so many other people who will corroborate as to why this particular mantra is indeed Apaurushaya. And not only that, they will also say this mantra is pronounced like this. This mantra is has this particular devata and chandas, and so on and so forth. They will be able to corroborate. That is why even if the Rishi, see, you may say that Rishi's vision of that mantra is Apaurushaya, but when he's telling that to his disciples, he made a small mistake. After all, he's also human, no? So that particular problem is solved again by this particular parampara. Again, only Srimad Acharya has given this reasoning. Nobody has come closer to handling this particular question or giving the answer. So he says basically the parampara is the one which ensures that the textual integrity is maintained. Okay. So yeah, and the way I have put it over here, it is slightly wrong because it is not one linear thing like that. It is multiple such trees of information flowing down for generations together. Therefore, we say there is prasiddhi. Okay. So this is one is parampara. Another one is basically many of those things will give you prasiddhi. So he says that when a Swayam Pratibhat Veda, when a Vishwamitra or a Vasishta sees a particular Veda, it is acceptable because their vision is in line with whatever Veda Vakya is already there in the parampara. And when he says this is in line, it is not meaning wise, it is word wise. Okay, so Vishwamitra said Bhur Swaha, that particular thing is there in the Veda Vakya that is available to the parampara at that own time.
Right. Exactly. At
that time. Okay.
Yes.
Now I will say, okay, fine. I will also say, look, I meditated and Gayatri Mantra was revealed to me. I cannot say that because I do not have any of these capabilities. I am not adding anything to the new Veda here. Okay. But I will just claim to be a Rishi myself. That is also rejected by this particular characterization of a Rishi that is given here. Vimshan Lakshanato Anuna Tapasvi Bahuveda Vitu Veda Ityeva Yam Pashyet Savedo Jnana Darshanat. He has 20 characteristics. Okay, and he is he is into penances and he does a lot of tapas and he already knows a lot of Veda and whatever he sees as Veda, very important point. See, he is making an assertion there that this one is Apaurushaya. The Rishi, when he is seeing that, he knows there is no author to this Veda. The way Rishi is not saying, look, I forgot who the author is. Therefore, this also gives a reason as to why we should ignore this Mimamsaka's claim or the Advaitin's claim. Karturu Asmaranat. Rishi is telling you there is no Kartu. Why? Because Veda Ityeva Yam Pashyet. Very important, right? And that becomes Veda because it is an object of his jnana. It is perceived in jnana. So this is the definition by which we said that Veda, why Veda is trustworthy, because there is parampara siddha Veda Vakya, any darshana of any Vasishta, Vishwamitra, etc. other Rishis are acceptable because it is in line, the same Vakya exists as is in the parampara and so on and so forth. Now, he gives other circumstantial evidence now. Okay. So Acharya says, see, there is Veda mantra itself which says that this is particular, this thing is Nitya. Vacha Virupa Nityaya. This is an instruction to the sage Virupa to say that, to use the particular Nitya Vak, which is eternal word. Okay. So again, the same thing, it is very clear indication there itself. Nityaya Anityaya Staumi Brahma Tat Paramam Padam Iti Shrutirvava Nitya Anityavava Smrutaya Yaschanya Vachaha. See, here basically very clear. They are saying that I will praise Brahma, okay, and his Brahma's highest Swarupa, okay, using eternal word and even non-eternal word. Shruti is the Nitya, Smriti is the Anitya. Okay, and even other words on other
Yes.
non-eternal words are also anitya only. So says Shruti itself again. This is very important. This is a nice reference here, right? It is basically the Shruti is referring to a non-eternal text.
Correct.
An eternal text is referring to a non-eternal text. The same thing happens in your Chandogya Upanishad also, which claims that, which declares, not claims, which declares that Purana and Itihasa are the fifth Veda. So if one is eternal and the other one is non-eternal, how can an eternal text refer to a non-eternal text? This is a question that will be there, right? I mean, can Shruti, for example, reference to you or me? Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. So I'm trying to think for an answer.
Yeah.
Why not? Because by definition, a Shruti being eternal is always present,
Right.
and therefore,
but there is an what do you call an event in one time that has happened over there.
I understand. Therefore, anything which is designed to be eternal per se should have the ability to know the future.
No, this is not just about future, right? I'm just saying any point in past also. Any one point in past, how can it refer? Because it must have existed before that, right?
Yes.
It must have existed after that also.
Yes.
How will it know? Or rather, how can there be a reference to a non-eternal text there? Non-eternal event.
So, honestly, I'm not able to understand the direction in which you're going.
So I mean, this is the question that many people get into. They basically say that, for example, your Arya Samaj, or they basically try, or Brahma Samaj, I don't know which one. They basically try to say that your Puranas are not the main ones, but actually the Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishads are the Puranas that have been referred. But the point is that as your discomfort in seeing a problem there is understandable. You can have an eternal event refer to a non-eternal point. There is no logical binding over there, right? The only thing is that this event, which the eternal text is referring to, is also repeated eternally. It may be one event in time, but time itself is repeated. It goes in cycle. That's why it is called Pravahato Anadi. Right? So this is we'll come to those things a little later. Let's go over this other evidence that Acharya gives. Vigneyam paramam brahma jnapika parama shrutihi. Okay, anadi nitya sa tatcha vina tam nasagamyate iti katyayana shrutihi. So this one says that the highest means of knowing param brahma is the shruti itself. Okay, and why? Because not why, it is anadi and it is nitya. Not only that, it's clear here, it's very nice. Vinatam nasagamyate. Without that, he cannot be understood. Who? Parabrahma.
Correct.
Why? I mean, this is important. See, in today's world, people say, you know what? You come to God path, and whether Islam or Christianity or Buddhism or whatever it is, they all tell the same thing. Truth is one, but ways are many kind of thing. No, we have to go through the Veda only. The Veda itself is saying that. Okay. Same thing here. Sahasradha mahimanaha sahasram yavat brahma vishtitam tavati vak. As long as the Brahma is there, that much, for that much time, the vak has been there. Vak has been, the word has been there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So these are, I mean, I think I talked about this. Let's go to the next one. So this is the quote that Acharya gives here.
Previous one, please.
Sorry?
Yeah, exactly. So I think, frankly, from my mind, this particular sentence I like a lot. Anadi, Nitya. These are very important criteria for postulating anything to be an eternally guiding text or valid for anybody and everybody. This is very important. It has to be unoriginated and it has to be eternal. Only then can you conclude that, yes, this is guide for the from time minus infinity to plus infinity for everybody concerned. Therefore, this argument, Anadi Nitya Sa Tattvavina Tattvavina Tam Na Sa Gamyate. Without it, without defining something to be unoriginated and eternal. Without this, it's impossible to I think here, an extraordinary logic is built in.
Yeah, I'll tell you one more thing actually. If you notice the previous thing also here, right? Acharya is telling you why. For example, today I cannot come up with another system of Apaurishaya Granthas which has different set of conclusions. Today, or in future also, somebody cannot come up with say, okay, now I will make up one new parampara. Why? Because eventually you need to define that particular what do you call system of rishis who are constructed, number one, and most importantly, the text needs to be eternal.
Correct.
Yeah. So both the text needs to be eternal and the qualifications for the person to whom that text is revealed, that qualifications are also, that the conditions are also eternal. Basically, this particular thing. So therefore, you cannot build a new system of Veda which says that the old system is wrong. It is not your the new commandments versus the previous commandments, the old commandments. That is not possible here.
I think that is where though this is a bit of a digression, that is where the relatively modern system like Christianity or Islam or something can fall apart, because if you tie it to any specific person, then it cannot be Anadi nor it can be Nitya. Because if you are creating something, you are originating. Therefore, there is a big problem there. That is why I like this argument. Anadi, Nitya, Satcha Vina, Tamna Sagamya. Not possible at all. I mean, he is very emphatic in many places. I think it's pretty understandable. Yeah.
What will you do if somebody claims that, look, whether it is Moses or a prophet, right? Whatever they received or whatever was revealed to them is also Anadi Nitya. What will you do then?
Well, then we'll have to apply logic as to find out on what basis they make a claim.
So not only that, so for that, we basically say that, look, they don't have any parampara. If there was any such if there was any such eternal text kind of thing, there is no way to know that unless that parampara already has it.
Correct.
Important, right? So therefore, I cannot put any new text and claim Apaurishayatva status for that.
Yes.
Very important. I'll tell you why it becomes important when we go to the number of Upanishads and all those things in the next slides. Okay. But here there is one more point. Okay. Nitya Veda Samastascha Shashvata Vishnu Buddhigaha Sarge Amunaiva Ete Udgiryante Tathaivacha. Basically, what this Pramana says from Brahmanda Purana is the Veda is Nitya, all of them are Nitya, and all of them are always there in Vishnu's Buddhi. See, this is one problem, right? If you have a text, you need to have a conscious being in which the text is there.
Correct.
Or who is holding that text.
Correct.
Because text is not, I mean, we are not talking about printed copies or anything like that here, right? So it has to be in some conscious, sentient being's mind. And the Brahmanda Purana says it is all there in Vishnu's mind.
Correct.
And Sarge, every creation, he keeps repeating them, and that is how it gets Tatkramenaiva Tairvarnaihi Taiswaraireva Nachanyatha.
Correct.
Yeah, on the same sequence, using the same Udatta, Anudatta, and all those things, using the same Varnas, he repeats those texts. So he is very important in maintaining the Shrutis, Vedas, Paurushayatva.
Yes.
Like anything else also. I mean, right? Ataha Shrudittamete Sam Shruta Eva Yato Khilaihi. Because they have been told, okay, they have been told and everybody has been hearing them, it is called Shruti. You see, otherwise it is not possible to explain the word Shruti.
Yes.
Why will you call it Shruti? You will call it text 1, text 2. Say merchant one is, you will not call it a Shruti. Right?
Correct.
Here, the basic idea is this: asadharanya vipadesha bhavanti. Basically, you call things by their unique characteristics. So this Shruti is called Shruti because that Shrutitva, it is heard, it is passed through generations only by hearing. Therefore, it is called Shruti, which means that it was never authored. So if this particular thing was not there, why will the word Shruti be used against it? So this is some sort of circumstantial evidence that I was trying to point out. Correct. Not only that, he says, Janmantare Shrutastastu Vasudeva Prasadataha Muninam Pratibhaschanti Bhagenaiva na Sadarvashaha. This is very important. These Veda, what do you call these Munis, these Rishis, whoever has been. See, all Sampradayas, including the Nayayika, accepts that there is a role of a Rishi. Okay, the Rishi has seen that particular Veda. They all accept that. Even the person who is claiming that Ishvara is the author of the Veda, who doesn't, therefore whoever is rejecting the Apaurishayatva, even that person accepts the role of a Rishi. Okay, but they accept that Rishi, it is revealed to Rishi. So they are not basically saying that Ishvara has authored this based on any knowledge that is coming in from there. It is based on an inference. They are saying that okay, if it is a sentence, it needs to have an author. If I don't know the author, it is Ishvara. That is their logic. For us, we are saying that there is prasiddhi, and that prasiddhi determines that there is no author. There is a marked difference in the way we arrive at how the prasiddhi Purushayatva versus how Nayayika approaches Purushayatva. Janmantare Shrutastastu, and to these Purishis, the same thing appears, or it is revealed only in portions, never in complete this thing. Okay, so then he gives other this one. There may be other sentences within the Veda which talks about what do you call the origination of Veda itself. Ruksamani Jignire, something like that is there. I'm forgetting the word. Ruchasamani Jignire, right? So this comes in Purusha Sukta, right? Ruchaha. Jignire means, they were born. Samani, Samaveda, or whichever is in Sama form, they were all born from the Paramapurusha. It says, or Virat Purusha. But so for that he says, okay, Vedanam Srishti Vakyani Bhaveyuhu Vyakti Apekshaya. Their reference to being born or being created is only from a point of view of manifestation, or from the manifestation of their Abhimani Devatas. Okay, so when we say, look, Vedas, Brahma was holding the Vedas, and then Hiranyaksha or some Hayagrivasura who came and then who stole them from Brahma, and then this thing. What is the big deal, right? I mean, he is not really holding one copy of the Veda, and then that is the only copy, and that was lost.
Correct.
People imagine all these things, right? And they will say, yeah, it's all meant for children, kind of thing. But that's not the meaning there. The meaning is that particular Veda was, he is the person, the Asura stole the Avantara Abhimani Devatas of that particular thing. So Veda will become ineffective if those Devatas are not in action.
Correct.
Therefore, it became mandatory, or it became necessary for those Vedas to be saved. That's why Matsyavatara and all these things happened.
Yes.
So therefore, Devatas are important. So when those Vedas, when those Devatas are born, we say Ruchasamani Jignire. Basically, the Rigveda Abhimani Devata came forth, or the Samaveda Abhimani Devata came forth. When these things, instead of saying that, the Veda will say Ruchasamani Jignire, so on and so forth. And not only that, here there is one more point, okay, which is important, which is that even Puranani also, they are almost eternal, except that the same words are not used, the same concepts are eternal. The words are different, the concepts are same.
Correct.
Brings us to another very, very important point for today's world. In today's world, people think that Newton discovered gravitational laws, so on and so forth. So our rishis discovered all these universal laws, kind of thing. Right. But that's not what our rishis have done. They did not discover some truth and then put it in their words. They have discovered whatever they have discovered. They have used the same words. Tatkramenaiva tairvaranaihi. Same words have been used and same words have been communicated to us. Okay. So this is the important point there. There is so Acharya even goes further. He says that if the Shruti were indeed Anitya, why will you use the word Shruti or Veda for them? Why will you use what do you call special words, which mean that these are something special? See, these are special characteristics of that particular text. Unless these are special characteristics of those texts, why will we call them using those words? Right? If let's say I write a text, is anybody going to call that Shruti? No. Why will anybody call that Veda? No, because unless that particular text is different When it tells that, Veda means knowledge, right? It is a book of knowledge or whatever it is. What is different in this book of knowledge versus any book of knowledge that I write? This book of knowledge is eternal. That is why I call it by that particular word itself. This is knowledge. Other things are not knowledge. Therefore, Vishesha Shabda Upapadyate is logical, that only in case of Nityatva, not in case of Anityatva. And then he gives other Purana also. And not only that, you will find that in the Shruti, people talk about seeing the Veda. Right? I say that in fact the word Rishi comes from Darshana Vyavahara. So, which means that I see that if somebody has to just composing a text like the we write a movie script or something like that, why will, or even like Shakespeare wrote Merchant of Venice, why will you call that Darshana? He is not doing any Darshana there or anything like that. He is just writing whatever he writes feels like. On the other hand, your Vedic corpus and the allied corpus, you have many reference to this kind of, he saw this text. For example, Rig Veda, there is one mantra where some 1,000 rishis, right? They see the same 3-line text kind of thing. Sharkaraksha Rishi is there, and there's all of them, they see some 3 or few lines text. You cannot explain any of these things unless there is some concept of darshana itself.
Right.
Mantra darshana itself. So therefore, in these texts, what Acharya has done is to explain how you can have Apaurushaya, this thing, how there is pramana for Veda being Apaurushaya, how you can explain even cases where there is, even text where some creation of the Vedic sentences or Vedic portions are mentioned. Okay. And same thing applies. Even for example, I think there is some Veda mantra which refers to the rishis as mantra kartaraha. No problem. Mantra darshana kartaraha. That is how we will interpret them. Right? So, and in fact, in Mahabharata, you will see this thing, right? Yajnavalkya has received the Yajurveda from Aditya, from Surya.
Right.
And then look at the text that comes over there. Chakre Yajurvedam or something like that is there. So it says that Yajnavalkya wrote that particular text. Previous line says he received it. Second line or few lines later in Shanti Parva, it says that he basically did it. What did he do? So there you have to interpret that he basically spread it around, he taught it around, or he had the darshana karta, so on and so forth. Yeah. So just like that, you should do the same thing here. Yeah. Another problem that people have with Apaurushaya is the fact that there are many emotions of these rishis involved. Okay, it has direct references to some people. Okay, now for example, if you see, I forgot his name. He's some disciple of Ramana Maharshi, Vasishtha Ganapati Muni or something like that. I don't remember his name completely. So he has written one work where he decides to ditch Apaurushayatva. But his grounds are very weak, and Jaitirtha has already answered those queries, by the way, at least. So he says that, look, there are Veda mantras where, people are praying, right? And there are personal references. For example, the Ambrini Sukta, which says that, I am the one who gives the bow to the Rudra and says that, cut that 5th head of Brahma and all those things, right? Ahameva Rudram Dhunurata Nomi, Brahmadvishe Sharave Hantavavu. It says all of this, right? Now, how can you have these personal references? Not only that, there are prarthane, Kratum smara, you don't forget me. How can all of these things be there in Apaurushaya text? So they have problem with that. But that is also understandable. What Jaitirtha says is that basically, look, when he has to do that prarthana or whatever it is, instead of using my words, I use another set of words which are eternal. It does not mean I do not have my own emotion invested over there. Yeah. Okay. So even when I am talking, for example, right, I can say that, let's say I have to motivate my team, right? I will say, give me blood, tears and sweat, I will give you freedom. Something like that I will say, right? Did I author those words? I didn't. It is authored by somebody else. So I can mix my emotion or my prarthana, right, with some other set of words. It's just that I did not put in that sequence of those words. So people reject Apurushayatva on very, very feeble grounds and without much analysis. On the other hand, Acharya and his Sishyas, his disciples, have basically covered all of them and given very convincing answers.
Oh.
Yeah. So
can we stop with this for today?
Yeah. So I just summarize this and
Yes.
we can continue on this later.
Yes. I want to make a couple of concluding points. So once you finish summarization, I will summarize or are you going to summarize?
No, this is what I was trying to summarize. So any Apurusheya system, it needs to be beginningless. The set of text is closed. I cannot add a new text which says that, there is or whatever you have seen so far is false or it needs correction kind of thing. And then there is a constraint on the seer which is not easily removable. So all these things need to be there and they are all present in the case of Veda and therefore Veda is Pramana. Yeah. With that, I will close today's this one.
Can you okay. Can you go to
I'll do.
Slide 4? VTV and 4, yeah. Okay. So let me do one thing so that we can go to the talking mode.
He mentions one more point here, Acharya, if you see. Even when we call that, somebody is born, the Chetana is not really born. The Chetana is just manifest. Same thing when we say Purana, the Veda is born or it comes out of the Supreme Being. We are talking about its manifestation and not about its essential creation.
Okay. Can you stop sharing? Let's go to the communication mode.
I will come there. Sorry.
Yeah, good. No, not this. Yeah, good. Thank you. So thank you very much. I want to make a couple of points here. You have taken a very traditional route of establishing all the unotherness and other things here, variability, etc. Probably having an audience of scholarly people or people who are in the quest of scholarship, trying to compare, etc., etc. Can there be this kind of an objection for unotherness, or maybe what Nayayika are saying, what Advaitis are saying, etc. You try to take that route, which is very comprehensive. But I'm assuming that the audience who are going to really see these videos of yours, they are not going to do that. No, they may not. Many of them may not even know such difference of opinion exists. Yeah. Therefore, from that point of view, I would probably pick up a couple of things. Among whatever you said, should strike a chord on them. So I'm trying to.
Can I just interrupt there 1 minute?
Please,
because I think more than addressing either the Advaitin or a Mimamsaka here, my primary audience has been the modern educated whatever it is, to basically tell that this system, we believe in this system because of this Apurushayatva. We cannot ignore Apurushayatva as an artifact or a figment of imagination or an artifact of belief because of these reasons. Okay, in the process, I may have referred to the Nayayika or anything like that, but my point is mostly towards the modern people to say that, look, you cannot, you have to accept Veda, you have to accept Apurushayatva, and then everything else will fall because of that. So, I mean, whatever our acharane, right, whatever practices we have is eventually justifiable only on the basis of this Apurushayatva.
Very correct. That you made very well, very established that. I'm very sure that the viewers will get that. The modern pant and shirt viewers will certainly get that. But what I was trying to say was that representing without any authorization, representing a segment of people, I'm saying this. Among the various things you said, the most important, in my view, point is that in VTV and 4, which you quoted, this Shaswataha Vishnu Buddhigaha. That is very important for 2 reasons, according to me. here we are not playing any partiality of choosing Vishnu God versus Rudra God. It is not like that. I think our viewers must understand. Even in the Deva Taratamya was not done to push down any god or whatever. It is very much tied to way, in my view, I don't know whether you will agree with me or not, in a way, the human psyche is defined in the Sankhya model. It's the Purusha, Prakriti and Abhi, there's ego, etc. comes later. And that is why the Taratanya comes into picture. And it ties down in another way, particularly for those who are very conversant with cosmology, the creation of the universe, and have been troubled with the question as to what happened before the universe was created. What? Because the matter was not there. It exists what? And how can you claim anaditva? Before the extending it to the pre-creation, etc., I think Mahabharata Shrimad Acharya refers, and I'm trying to connect it here. This Vishnu, when they say Vishnu Buddhikaha, Vishnu is a tattva, not necessarily the physical Vishnu which we picture about. That is why it comes as a Vishnu Tattva Vinirnaya. It does not talk about Vishnu as a god here, in my view. And connecting it to Vishnu Buddhigaha is extremely important, because if you treat Vishnu as a universal principle, universal intelligent principle, it is a non-matter. In which case, the creation or non-creation of physical universe, it does not matter. A non-matter can exist before matter was created. And knowledge is also a non-matter. Knowledge is not a matter. And therefore, it makes a logical sense to propose that the entire wisdom was forever. When Shaswataha, I am extending to pre-creation of the physical universe. Therefore, it is logically, in my view, Srimad Acharya is arguing, it existed even before the universe was created, because it's a non-matter, as a knowledge, it existed in the intelligence principle called Vishnu. That is why Vishnu is considered to be supreme, not necessarily because you are saying this god is higher than that god. This is the way I understand, which some Panchatwalas would love, I think, from various arguments. I don't know what you feel about it.
So the Vishnu Tattva versus, see, I mean, there is some merit to what you are saying, in the sense that most people, before they study Acharya, they have Vishnu as, this blue colored guy who is sleeping in some ocean somewhere kind of thing, and, all that. Yeah, I mean, definitely Acharya's conception or the Vedic conception of Vishnu is much different from that. We will come to that in the, when we go to the ontology portion. Right now, we are still debating, what is my epistemology, right?
Yes.
In fact, we have not come to the point of which Upanishad should I take, which is my Shastra. We have not come to that point. We have been still, so to say, fixated on the Veda so far, right? The added literature. When we come after all of these things, we will get a better understanding of what the Vishnu principle is. But this line by itself, as you rightly understood, it shows that there is one Vishnu who has a buddhi and it has a content. All three are explicitly told by this particular Vedic line or Puranic line.
Yes, excellent. Because I understand that. You're going through it systematically, establishing, I understand that. But like I said, Panchatwalas are always impatient because we come from a different reference point of view. We know everything. We have read everything. Why Madhvacharya is saying this? That's how we start. And I just want to keep touching those points, though I'm kind of jumping the gun, so that we don't lose the audience. Oh my God, Krishna, though he is wearing patterned shirt, he is no different from the traditional Matwala. I don't want them to say that. Yeah, you are the bridge. For me, you are the bridge between Panchatwala Madhvas and the Jutu Panchatwala Madhvas in the Matha. I want you to be the bridge. Therefore, I want to assure the audience that honest, I don't even understand why we even got a notion that Madhva Sampradaya, and particularly Srimad Acharya, is more personal God-oriented person. It's not, frankly speaking, he's far more logical in his argument. I find more and more you read, you find he's laboring so much. I mean, for example, so much he has spent, he has argued about to establish the fundamental principles of Aporishita. Why? Because he wants to make it clear.
And I'll tell you, he has surpassed any other Acharya and teacher in this particular treatment of Apaurushyatva.
Right.
Neither Sayana nor even people who came later than him, they spent so much time in establishing Apaurushyatva. And of the other part is what we had seen, the establishing the the presence of a consciousness as fundamentally different from matter. These are the foundational stones on which everything stands, our why we do whatever we do types. And that's why he takes a lot of time, though these were sort of
predominantly
accepted tenets in his days. He doesn't take it for granted.
Exactly.
And he goes step by step and then does that.
Exactly. That's what I
think. This to answer your previous, in your last session or something like that we had asked, right? The original quote that I had given, right? Tad bhakti vashaschaiva, something like that was there. So he's saying that he's so sectarian that he's already talked about Vishnu Bhakti. Only people with Vishnu Bhakti can understand the Veda. So it is like putting the cart before the horse kind of thing, right? I mean, or whichever way, right? So, but that is not his point there. His point is, I will give you the pramana, take it as a pramana, and then whatever the pramana tells you, you have to accept that.
Correct. Exactly.
So if pramana tells you to be sectarian or whatever it is by the normal stand or by the current standards, be sectarian. What is the big deal? I mean, the point is to be more truthful, or correctness is more important than whether what labels people attach to you, right? At the end of the day.
All right. I think there's another viewpoint I have, and that is generally theology is considered to be a little, very, very sectarian, and when compared to metaphysics. That is why, to a large extent, I think Shankara kinds of gives third-rate treatment to theology, saying, okay, yeah, you want to believe, it doesn't matter. No, inconsequential. He treats it almost inconsequential. Though many would like to believe, because he said Bhaja Govindam is a great thing. He is not. He is, frankly speaking, if he did not have to interact with so many people, he would have said, forget about all those things, he would have said, in my view. But I find Ananada Theertha Muni, he approaches from a compare. That's why again I come back to Madhu, the Sweet Acharya thing. He understands this is how people relate. I don't simply say things which is unconnected with people. This is how people relate to each other. So I will take that model. Theology is fundamentally emotion-driven thing. He takes that. At the same time, says don't disrespect it, because there is a deep connect between theology and metaphysics. That is where I find him, kind of going both sides of the table. He goes from here to there and there to here. He keeps going back and forth, but he never misses a point, in my view, to iterate, emphasize that you do all those things, but remember, Vishnu means what? Remember this. Why Vishnu is supreme? Remember this. Understand it. That leap towards metaphysics he keeps doing all the time is my observation. But anyway, thank you very much. I think today is a little longer session we had, but you've taken a lot of pains. I see that, I can see your internal struggle. On the one hand, you're trying to be very authentic, shastric. On the other hand, you're trying to address it you went to the level of, other modern viewpoints, etc. You're trying to balance. I see that. I hope viewers are able to, I request the viewers take a little more time this time around, because you covered a lot of angles, Point is same, but you covered from so many different angles, trying to raise in a traditional Tarka mode, trying to raise the Purva Paksha, so many Purva Pakshas, and try to establish your principle by Siddhanta principle by trying to address them. I request the viewers to take patience, see it multiple times. This is very important because, like you said, understanding the validity of the concept of Apaurushyatva and Veda as a pramana and Vishnu Tattva as the supreme thing is so essential if you want to understand Shrimad Acharya's philosophical edifice. You may disagree with him, that's okay, but first requirement is you understand. I think this is very, very important. Thank you very much, Krishna. Thanks for your time, and we will see you next time.
Madhvesha Krishna.